Now we move on to understanding internal control. So guys, what do you think when I say internal control? It surely controls within the business, so internally. But what controls? What do they need inside the business? And why? Well, if we look at the definition of internal control, it's the process, and guys, in process, it could have been designed, implemented, monitored by the business to ensure that there is fair presentation of the financial statements, compliance with laws and regulations, and effective and efficient operations. So it's a major process. It's not one little thing. There's millions of things that make up internal control so that they can achieve fair presentation of their financials, that they comply with all laws and regulations, and their operations are done effectively and efficiently. So guys, it's the controls within the business over finance or financial reporting, and over compliance with all other regulations. It's controls within the business to ensure that the operations are done correctly, according to how they want this business to run. And why are these controls even put in place? Why do they have them? Because the business needs to comply with the financial reporting frameworks and its laws and regulations in order to present the financials free from material misstatement and to be able to continue operating. They have to have effective and efficient operations to be a business. Otherwise, competitors are going to come and take over. So in order for this business to continue functioning and functioning well, there must be internal control. There must be controls within the business. Guys, internal control is broken into 5 categories. Control environment, the entity's risk assessment processes, monitoring of controls, the information system, and control activities. Those are the 5 components of internal control. If you were trying to break internal control up into sections so that you could understand it a little bit better. Because as you can see from its definition, it's huge and it's not limited to one specific area, it's everywhere in this business. It affects everything about the business, the operations, the reporting, the compliance. So, in describing each of these components, we can get a better understanding of how internal control is going to affect the client and then ultimately us as auditors. So first of all, the control environment. Take the 2 words on their own again. We're looking at the environment within the business, but now specifically with regards to controls. So how would you understand the environment of the business? This would be something like the culture of the business, how it's run, the atmosphere when you walk into that business. But now specifically, what is that culture, the running of the business, the atmosphere with regards to controls. So specifically now linking it back to controls. And guys, who would be responsible for creating the environment at the business, the culture, the atmosphere? It would be your management, your owners, your governance. And so the question is, what is their attitude to internal controls and controls as a specific function? Are management or the owners or the governance creating a culture of ethics? Are they trying to create an atmosphere where controls are at the forefront? Do they want people to act with integrity? And guys, ethically and integrity, if you are doing that, then by default, you will be complying with laws. And by default, your financials will be fairly presented. And by default, your operations will be effective and efficient. If that's your culture within the business and what you are trying to achieve. Because if management behave like that, then your staff are going to behave like that. Then any programs that you implement are going to be required to adhere to that. So without a strong control environment, guys, there is no internal control within a business. But as soon as there's a strong control environment, then the rest follows. Because if that's management's attitude and how they're running this business and the culture that's there, then the second component of internal control, the entity's risk assessment process, will be happening. The entity will assess for risks in the business, because they will be constantly trying to address those risks by putting controls in place. So if their attitude is to act with integrity, to put controls in place, to have a inspired culture, they will, by default, look for risks in the business so that they can address those risks with controls. Okay, so the next part of it is, do they assess risks in their business? And then, do they put controls in place over the risks? So that's your control activities. Do they put controls in place to address these risks? And once again, if they have a strong control environment, they will do so, because that's the culture. Information systems and control activities, guys, they kind of go together. The information system, how does the information land up in the financials so that the financials are fairly presented? And the control activities are the controls that are put around that information system so that the financials are fairly presented and they comply with laws and operations are effective and efficient. I'm going to touch on those in a little bit more detail now. I just want to cover all 5 of these components. And then finally, the monitoring of the controls. Do they monitor to ensure that the controls they've put in place are addressing the risks? So they must look for risks, They must then put controls in place to address those risks, and then they must monitor that those controls are addressing the risks. That's internal control. Guys, there's a reason I have put 3 in blue and 2 in red. And that's because the standard has now differentiated between the control environment, risk assessment and monitoring of controls, and the information system and control activities. And it is said that the blue ones, control environment, risk assessment and monitoring of controls, are all indirect controls. And those controls are therefore in place to address the risks that the financials as a whole are materially misstated. So some of these controls, you can't see where they would impact directly on the financials, but saying something like the owners creating a culture of compliance with laws and regulations means that by doing that, they are trying to address that the financials have complied with laws and regulations and therefore aren't materially misstated. I cannot pinpoint that control to a specific area within the financials. As opposed to the 2 in red, information system and control activities, they are considered direct controls. And they are going to be controls that are there to address the risks of misstatements at the assertion level. The assertion level. And what I mean by that, they are therefore to address specific transactions or balances or disclosures in the financials. So you can actually see this control makes sure that revenue is recorded correctly. This control is there to ensure that the payroll is not overstated. Whereas your control environments, their risk assessments and their monitoring are really high-level controls that don't deal with specific balances or transactions. And guys, it's for this reason that I need to spend a lot more time on the information system and control activities, because the information system is how the transactions and balances and disclosures land in the financial statements. How the information travels from initiating a transaction all the way through to recording it in the accounting records so that it ends up in the financial statements, and how the disclosures end up in the financial statements, and how the balances end up in the financial statements, how they're revalued and how they are calculated. So the information system, guys, is so important in achieving the fairly presented financial statements, because this is how the accounting records generate the financial statements. And the control activities are then the specific controls over the transfer of this information into the financial statements. So the control activities are the controls that they've got to put in that information system to make sure that the transactions, the balances and the disclosures in the financials are fairly presented. And so information system and control activities we're going to delve further into next. But I just want you to be aware that without a strong control environment, without management identifying risks so that they know where the risks in the information system lie, they cannot put control activities in place. And if they don't put control activities in place, those risks are likely to materialize into misstatements and no longer be risks of material misstatements. And management must therefore continue monitoring the controls that were put in place, because those controls may no longer be addressing the risk that they were intended for, or an additional risk may have materialized because that control is addressing the initial risk. So it's very important that you see it as a congruent process, but our focus has to be where we as auditors come in, and that's to ensure that the financials are fairly presented. And so we want to focus on the information system and the control activities, because that's how we can pick up where there are misstatements in the financials. Alright, so let's jump into the information system. I want to explain and visually give you an idea of how information travels through the system to land up in the financials, so that it starts to make a little bit more sense. And once we're done with that, we will then discuss the control activities that can be put in place to help that information travel through without material misstatements.